For millennia, people existed in biologically and culturally distinct patches or territories. But with the rise of democracy and the invasion of the white European settlers came changes. Previously distinct cultures, with their unique little narratives, became assimilated into the national collective. In the pursuit of sovereignty, the powerful regulators believed that a single grand narrative, based on unified myths, knowledges, and languages, would ensure the dominion, performativity, and perfection of this new collective as a nation. Powerful regulators chose which knowledges became amplified and which were dampened. They defined the New World Order based on legitimization myths of progress, technology, and the future, the perfection and liberation of humanity, and the speculative unity of all knowledge, for the benefit of one race, and one race only. These myths became the underlying source of the superiority complex of the white Euro-Americans. In order to ensure a single grand narrative and collective directive, we were technologically enhanced. Through these technological implants, we received input through informational circuits coming directly from the regulators. We had become output terminals without input receptors. The proverbial talking stick was gone. There was no more discussion, debate, or compromise. Our knowledges were uniformly distributed, and our truths were fed to us. We were now a national collective machine. We were universalized. Technology and communication networks became the talisman or consecrators of colonial dominance and racial superiority. Outsiders that resisted assimilation became marginalized. Lands and people that were not technologically enhanced were considered primitive bounty to be claimed and assimilated. In becoming assimilated and colonized as a nation, we lost many little knowledges that became delegitimized in the directive of a single purpose and knowing, in the quest for a monolithic society. Colonel Pratt summed this up when he said, "The end to be gained is the Indian to lose his identity." Through colonization, the indigenous little narrative was degraded and marginalized. Their myth of a relational, animate, and holistic universe where time spirals, space fluxes, and energies flow within and around everything, carrying and connecting knowledges, was dampened and withheld by the regulators from our nation's people. Yet recent innovative theories in science are now showing an uncanny resemblance to the indigenous worldview. David Bohm, a world-renowned quantum physicist, has a theory of the implicate order of things that speaks to the connection and flux of time, space, and energy as an undivided whole in which nothing is separate or autonomous. A theory resembling indigenous ontology and contradicting the dominant Western scientific paradigm of reductionism into parts. He has proposed that scientists question the nature of their theories and their scientific methodology. Bohm believes that our current scientific knowledge production and use, individualized and disconnected into a universal abstraction, can lead to disastrously inaccurate and faulty conclusions that may lead us to our ecological and social doom. With changing views of knowledge in science and the advent of the information age and globalization, a crisis of narratives and knowledge is upon us. As we shift to new informational cybernetic technologies, networking capabilities are dissolving boundaries between nations, people, narratives, and fragmented institutions of knowledges. We are beginning to understand that separation is but an illusion. Advanced societies are becoming increasingly skeptical of the grand narratives as the regulators lose control over what knowledges become legitimized in a globalized world. Paradoxes abound in knowledge. There is never one truth. Even the most rational of minds in science postulate truths that are later refuted, refigured, and replaced by different versions. Society is waking up and realizing that knowledge does not represent truth or certainty. It is flawed, transient, and relative. We are questioning how we have come to know what we know and how the deprivileging and marginalization of subordinate voices has become part of the process of knowledge production. This questioning is important as Lyotard warns us that not all knowledge is immediately or foreseeably productive or logical, despite what the regulators have told us, but that greater variety and freedom enables the production of ideas that couldn't have been possible otherwise. Charles Darwin might argue that it is through the freedoms of all knowledges and cultures to exist that we create greater diversity and therefore adaptability to figurative changes in environment for survival and evolution. By embracing the little narratives, we enable many different languages and knowledges to exist in parallel amid small social collectives. They become institutions in patches with local determinism. Through communication networks, distributed people can belong to multiple patches and create their own little narratives and knowledges, free from the sanctions of nations and experts. Through this process, we all derive greater diversity of ideas and viewpoints. And within this blurring of boundaries between these patches of knowledge lies our future, as important new ideas are constructed from the intertwining of different knowledges.
Last 10 to 20 years, what are called the hard sciences have started to see the value of local knowledge. The people who are living out on the land, in the country, surviving off of it every day, are observing it, and they have knowledge.
The exchange of information between the academic sector and the communities, and often in Alaska we're talking about native communities. The communities understand that the university has access to resources, to modeling systems, to fancy instrumentation that can really help provide detailed information about the environment. At the same time, we are not the local observers. We're not able to make those observations about the impactful weather. We have to go to the communities to properly tune how we're running the models.
Yet still today, other ways of being and thinking, our ethnosphere, are being eroded like our ecosphere. Thousands of languages are being lost, and with them their flash of human spirit, their soul of culture, their old-growth forests of the mind. More and more indigenous communities are fighting this loss through communication technologies that enable them to pass on the wisdom of their ancestors before elders carry into the grave the last vestiges of their culture. They are essentially taking the tools of colonization and using them on their side. Which begs the question, what do indigenous people wish to conserve or enhance with these new informational technologies? What aspects of their consciousness do they hope to reflect? These are important questions because different informational technologies, whether TV or internet, produce different community, subjectivity, possibilities, and limits. For example, like the Pukea trumpet, an indigenous technology that enables communication between a human and the energies of the implicate order. The Internet is an animate technology that gathers a community of collective cultures in communication. This online community embodies an indigenous-friendly ecology that transforms and revitalizes awareness and knowledge, enables expression and sharing, inspires learning, and carries all the knowledge gathered in these relationships in flows of energy that surround and flow through us. Unlike traditional media like books and TV, multi-dimensional, multi-sensory, immersive, and interconnected environments provide Indigenous people exponentially more affordances to represent their consciousness and voice, and create understanding of connection, meaning, balance, feeling, memory, senses, and place. Appropriate interfaces with digital technologies include systems that could interact with Indigenous artifacts and provide a new 3D digital dimension to knowledge holding, or holographic imaging that accurately represents artifacts and places on a holistic and human scale, or the geographic information system that describes places on the scale of the whole planet. Other appropriate interfaces include those that incorporate the traditions of oral storytelling into immersive environments that provide a holistic, multisensory, and multidimensional user interface, including aspects of intuitive physicality such as rhythm, movement, space, and form. Virtual online environments like Digital Songlines' Digital Storytelling Project create an immersive, multidimensional, and interconnected experience reflecting a high fidelity to Indigenous values such as community, place, and interrelatedness between animate objects and people. On the whole scale, Indigenous people can offset the imbalance of power and knowledge dissemination, generation, and discussion through global communication networks. Many non-localized transnational communities are attempting to overrun the rights of local Indigenous people. However, as Indigenous people move into a machinic system of binary ones and zeros, what protocols will inform what, when, and with whom different knowledges are discussed and shared, and how they will carry knowledge without fragmenting it. Indigenous technologies have always possessed contracts between the instrument, its embodied knowledge, and the community, the ecology, the spirit, and the past. These protocols will be important if knowledges are to be protected from misrepresentation or misuse. Such misuse can occur through the stealing and decontextualization of different knowledges. As societies, corporations, or countries fragment and reconstruct knowledges to suit performativity, optimization, or efficiency goals. A one-solution-fits-all approach. In the end, as Day states, we must destabilize the Eurocentric knowledges as the only valid way of knowing. We must question the power structures rooted in the production and use of knowledges, and we must also question the wisdom of discarding other knowledges in the perceived interests of nation, progress, and independence. Through this process, we can create incremental but cumulative changes to society's recognition of the value of Indigenous and others' knowledges.